Amaranth, is a vegetable that defies expectations. It's one of those rare crops that actually thrives when conditions are less than ideal. Most people assume that the richer the soil, the better the harvest, but with amaranth, that logic just doesn't hold up. Planting this vegetable in rich, heavily fertilized soil is the fastest way to ruin it. The result shows up immediately: tall, weak stems, floppy growth, and barely any usable yield. The fix is the opposite of what most growers expect. Strip the soil back, stop feeding it, and let it struggle just a little. Within weeks, the difference is obvious. Thicker stalks, explosive vertical growth, and a plant that can shoot past human height without collapsing. This isn't theory. This is how amaranth behaves when it's grown correctly. And yes, it's the same plant most people walk past, thinking it's a weed. Give it poor soil and it turns into one of the most productive vegetables in the entire garden. Give it rich soil and it becomes a useless ornamental. That's the mistake. Now here's what actually works. So let's talk about the very beginning, where it all starts, with the soil and those first signs of life. The right soil is honestly just as important as the seed itself. If you get this part right, you're setting the stage for everything that follows. Early growth isn't just about sprouting. It's about building a solid foundation. Plants need a place where roots can breathe and stretch out, but not get bogged down by too much moisture or excess nutrients. It's a delicate balance, and getting it right makes all the difference in the long run. Start with soil that drains fast and doesn't hold excessive nutrients. A basic mix of native soil with about 20 to 30% sand or coarse compost is enough. No heavy manure, no nitrogen-loaded fertilizers. This plant evolved to thrive where others fail. Overfeeding it doesn't help, it confuses it. Within the first 2 weeks, the stems should already feel firm. Not soft, not watery, firm. By week 4, it starts climbing aggressively, reaching for height instead of spreading sideways. That vertical push is exactly what's needed, because every extra inch translates into more edible leaves and stronger seed heads later. Most growers kill this momentum right here by watering too frequently. Amaranth doesn't want wet feet, it wants cycles, deep watering, then partial drying. That stress triggers root expansion. Bigger roots mean taller plants. It's that simple. So, when you're ready to scale up and start harvesting, the process is surprisingly straightforward. Just keep an eye on the growth and harvest when the plants reach the size you want. You'll notice that timing and consistency are key. Harvesting at the right moment ensures the best flavor and yield. And remember, the more you harvest, the more the plant responds, often sending out fresh growth for another round. And here's where things start getting interesting, because once this plant passes waist height, the entire dynamic changes. Now it's competing for light and winning. Now it's shading out weeds naturally. Now it's producing biomass faster than most leafy greens can even attempt. And all of that came from doing less, not more. This is exactly why it doesn't fit neatly into commercial agriculture systems. It grows too aggressively without inputs. It reseeds itself. It doesn't depend on purchased fertilizers. And once established, it becomes nearly impossible to eliminate completely. That's not profitable in a system built on dependency, but in a home garden, that's a massive advantage. Now let's get practical about scaling this. Spacing matters, but not in the way most people think. Tight spacing forces upward growth. Wide spacing encourages branching. If the goal is height and continuous leaf harvest, plants should sit about 20 to 30 centimeters apart. That creates a vertical forest effect. For seed production, spacing can widen to 40 to 50 centimeters to allow full head development. Both approaches work. The difference is intention. So, moving on to advanced management and tools, There are a few things to keep in mind. First, regular observation really is key. You'll want to monitor growth patterns and adjust your approach as needed. Basic hand tools are usually sufficient, but a sharp hoe or even just a sturdy pair of secateurs can make maintenance much easier. And honestly, don't be afraid to experiment a bit. Sometimes the best techniques come from simple trial and error. And then there's cutting. Most growers harvest too aggressively and too early, stunting the plant permanently. The correct approach is selective harvesting. Take the top 10 to 15 centimeters once the plant is established and leave the rest. That single cut forces lateral shoots while maintaining vertical growth. Done correctly, one plant turns into multiple harvest points. Done incorrectly, it just stalls. At around this stage, when the plant is already shoulder height and producing consistent leaf growth, the telescopic garden harvesting hook pole becomes useful. It's linked in the description below. Using that link may generate a small commission at no extra cost. And those commissions help support a dog rescue that takes in abandoned animals and actually gets them rehomed. Because once amaranth passes head height, harvesting by hand starts damaging the plant. Pulling or bending stems creates stress fractures. A controlled cut from above keeps the structure intact. That's not just convenience, that's yield protection. So just to wrap things up, amaranth's resilience in the face of unpredictable weather really sets it apart. It thrives in heat, shrugs off drought, and bounces back after storms in ways that, honestly, most crops just can't match. Selective harvesting isn't just about getting more food, it's about working with the plant's natural growth patterns, making the most of every season. With the right approach, a single amaranth plant can keep producing week after week, even as conditions change. And well, that's why it's become a staple for so many gardeners looking for both nutrition and reliability. Thanks for following along, and here's to your next harvest. Now, here's where deeper understanding separates average results from serious production. Amaranth is a C4 plant. That means it thrives in heat and intense sunlight far better than most leafy vegetables. While others slow down in high temperatures, this one accelerates. That's why it dominates in tropical and subtropical climates. And that's also why it gets overlooked in cooler regions. It's planted at the wrong time. Plant it when temperatures are consistently above 20 degrees Celsius, and it takes off. Plant it too early, and it sulks. So timing isn't optional here, it's everything. Another overlooked factor is wind exposure. Tall plants become vulnerable if grown in sheltered conditions. Slight wind stress early on actually strengthens the stem structure. Completely protected plants often collapse once they reach full height. So, a bit of movement isn't a problem. It's part of the process. Now let's talk about something most people ignore completely: reseeding. Amaranth drops thousands of seeds, and unlike many crops, those seeds remain viable in the soil for years. That means one successful season can create a self-sustaining patch, but only if it's managed correctly. Letting all plants go to seed creates overcrowding the next season. Controlled reseeding is the key. Leave a few strong plants to mature fully, and remove the rest before seed drop. That balance keeps the system productive instead of chaotic. And yes, those seeds are edible, highly nutritious, high in protein, and extremely versatile. So the plant doesn't just produce leaves, it produces grain. 2 harvests. 1 plant, 0 cost. Now circle back to harvesting again, because this is where most yield gets lost. As plants exceed human height, reaching becomes inefficient and inconsistent. That's where using something like the telescopic garden harvesting hook pole again makes a noticeable difference. Clean cuts, no tearing, no climbing into beds or damaging surrounding plants. It keeps the system clean, and clean systems produce more. Now let's address a common myth. There's a belief that fast-growing plants must be heavy feeders. That's not universally true. Amaranth grows fast because of its efficiency, not because of external inputs. Overfeeding actually reduces its resilience and increases pest susceptibility. In balanced, slightly lean soil, pest pressure stays low. The plant's natural defenses remain active. That's the trade-off. More fertilizer equals weaker defense. Less interference equals stronger plants. Now consider this in a raised bed versus open ground. In raised beds, drainage is already higher, so watering frequency becomes the main control. In-ground systems depend more on soil composition. Both work, but the management style shifts. In hydroponics, this plant behaves completely differently. It grows rapidly, but loses structural strength unless airflow and support are carefully managed. It becomes more like a soft leafy green rather than a towering plant. So the method changes the outcome, but the principle stays the same. Controlled stress builds strength. Now back to the bigger picture. This plant breaks several assumptions about modern gardening. It doesn't need premium soil. It doesn't require constant feeding. It doesn't rely on external inputs. And once established, it keeps coming back. That combination makes it incredibly powerful for anyone serious about food production. It also explains why it's not widely promoted in large-scale agriculture systems. Because it removes the need for constant purchasing. And that's not a popular feature in a commercial model, but in a home garden, that's exactly what makes it valuable. Now bring everything together. Start with lean soil. Water deeply, but not constantly. Encourage vertical growth through spacing. Harvest selectively, not aggressively. Manage reseeding instead of eliminating it. And use the right tools when the plant outgrows your reach, the telescopic garden harvesting. Hook pole quietly solves that problem without disrupting the system. That's how one overlooked plant turns into a continuous food source. Not by adding more, but by removing what doesn't belong. If the goal is real results, more food, less input, stronger plants, this is the kind of approach that actually works. Subscribe for more practical growing techniques that go beyond surface-level advice and, share this with someone who still thinks more fertilizer is always the answer. Because sometimes the best thing to do in a garden is step back and let the plant do what it was designed to do.